When someone says to me, "Hey, their goal is to be president of Primus," I'm like, "Bet that means I can go on vacation. Let me start training you. Let me start showing you what needs to be done, so that way I can move along and do something else while you keep my company keep going." Right. So it's the idea of mentorship and the idea of training and evaluating your staff. It takes a honestly, it takes a special kind of leader to do it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Right on the Money, where we're going to inspire business owners to overcome their obstacles, grow their businesses, and lead greatly. Has the growth of your business stagnated? Well, the solution could be as simple as finding a business mentor. Mentorship is key to unlocking the full potential and the potential of those around you. On this week's episode, we'll be talking about mentorship from CEO to CEO, from CEO to employee, and everything in between. I'm Janae Wright. Join me and my co-host Deshaun White as we go into this topic.
Hey everyone, Deshaun White here. Today's guest is the owner of not one, but two Chick-fil-A franchises. Mr. Keith Singletary has worked in the areas of business operations, finance, accounting, and auditing for over 25 years within various government agencies, public and private sectors, nonprofits, and as an entrepreneur. In each, his tasks have included managing budgets, some in excess of 120 million, and providing training and development of key staff. Currently, as the owner of two Chick-fil-A franchises in Largo, Maryland and Capitol Heights, Maryland, Keith communicates a clear vision and direction for both franchises. In addition to our CEO to CEO chat, we will be offering a bonus Q&A with Mr. Keith for all of our aspiring franchise owners. So stick with us the whole way through.
Keith, Deshaun, one of the things that I always thought about when I was starting my business was, I never really thought about finding a mentor, right? It was always about how can I push myself harder to get the work done. And I think also in the back of my mind was always the connotation of I didn't want to look soft, right? I didn't want to look I didn't know enough, so I didn't want to ask somebody for help. And then there's the other side is how do you actually ask somebody to be a mentor? It can be a very weird interaction, but I think we all understand now as we've grown our businesses that mentorship is a game changer, right? We don't know everything. We don't know every aspect of every business of anything we want to plan, but somebody has done this before, right? So the idea of bringing mentorship to your business, bringing mentorship to your employees is an important aspect of running any business. So I want to make sure that we jump into this conversation really straightforward and really start talking about the importance of it, right? And how did it start out? How did it start out for you, Keith? How did you get into mentoring, even from either side, either as a boss or as an employee? How did you get into it first?
When I look back at my prior employment before Chick-fil-A, I learned from a gentleman that I'll never forget. I was working at the Red Cross, and I worked in the department of financial management. And this gentleman would have people join his organization with his group, and and what would happen is people would come in, and within a year or two, they would leave and catapult to other positions. And I shared with him, I said, "Why are you doing that? Why are you training people and then pouring into them, and then they continue to leave?" And he shared with me, he said, that's the role of a leader.
Yes,
A
yes.
leader's responsibility is not only to pull him or herself up by their bootstraps, but also to be able to pour into other people. And from that point on, and that was back in 1987, 89, between 87 and 89 when I learned that. And from that point forward, I always looked, number one, search for mentors, to people to pour into me, but also too, I took the time to mentor other people too as well. And so it's essential, I believe, in any business that's certainly aspiring to be successful.
No, I think I love what you said. There's this weird, not weird, but there's this meme that went around a couple years ago that I always tell people, and it kind of emphasizes what you said, right? The meme said a CFO asks a CEO, why do we paying for these trainings for people? And the CEO is like, and the question he asked was, what happens when they leave? The CEO's response was, what if you don't train them and they stay?
Yes.
Right. So I think the idea of mentorship as a way of growing your employees and growing your business is profound. I don't think people realize how important that is. Right.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
one of the conversations is that your employees are most likely your biggest promoters. Right.
Yeah.
If they hate your business, telling everybody to hate your business, you have a problem.
Right.
Right. And if they feel like they're stuck in a job they don't like, they're going to be grumpy. It's going to really bring down the morale of the company. So having someone pour into them, as you said, I think helps them understand their position, helps them grow as a person. And I think in everybody's position, if someone leaves you in that position, or leaves your company, they're not leaving on a bad term. They may end up bringing back business to you because of that. So I think
Exactly.
that the idea of mentorship is a great way of really growing your business and growing your reputation as a business owner.
Right. Right. And Janae, I happen to think that there are a lot of companies that mentor. When you think about mentorship, generally people think about mentorship outside of a work environment, and that to me is is so different from what our viewpoint is. We believe that the mentorship has to be in the organization, because here's the other thing: if you don't pour into people, if you don't get them engaged in your business, if you don't provide an opportunity for them to grow and develop, your business won't grow. It's almost just like being at somebody mentioned, if you're at a church and let's say every church member, the average age is 70 years old, and somebody said, well, is that church growing? It's not growing. If you don't have people that are in there that are continuously giving new ideas, providing opportunities to be able to reach other people, you're not going to continue to grow. And so the old concept was that I would go to an area and start working, and then I would be promoted based on what I could do, what Keith Singletary could do. Didn't worry about anybody, in my area or anybody that reported to me. But in order to grow, for me to grow, I've got to grow my people. If I don't grow my people, eventually they're going to go someplace else and find someone else that they love to be with, and somebody that'll take the time to pour into them so that they can grow. Because when you're growing, you're earning too as well. So there's a twofold point on that too. When you're growing, you usually take more responsibility, receive more responsibility, and with more responsibility will come more opportunities for financial rewards as well.
So that's one of those situations of, for me, is like the question of, do you approach your mentee or did your mentee approach you? Who starts that conversation?
Well, I think it can be one or two. It can be both. There have been people that I have approached, and actually one of the first things I try to do is build a relationship with that individual. Everyone may not want to be mentored, and so first I think as a mentor in this situation, I would try to connect with them on a personal level and be very intentional about who I am, who they are, find some commonalities, and then you just begin sharing some insights. And so, but for the person that you want to be, I've been approached by a number of people that ask that I can mentor them. And it's difficult now because I've got an executive team and a mid-level leadership team that I've got to be able to pour into them and find time for them. So when somebody wants to be mentored outside of Chick-fil-A, for instance, it's difficult for me to have a lot of time for that. And so I think it can go both ways. I think when if you're approaching somebody, I think the important thing is to determine, number one, what is it that you're seeking from that mentor? Sharing with them specifically where you are and where you hope to be. And is there an opportunity where we can actually spend some time together? Because I'd love to get some insights on how you got to where you are, or how you can pour back into what I'm doing.
A few years ago, I actually had to decline to mentor someone, right? Because
Mhm.
I gave them requirements, right? They were very young. They didn't really show that they actually wanted it. So I think someone probably mentioned, "Oh, you should go ask Janae to mentor you." and I had to turn it down because they weren't showing to me that they were ready to go to that level. And I'm not about to waste the time that I have on someone who's just going to take my information, take my advice, and not actually apply it to the work that we were doing. So I guess, how do you feel about that? Do you think that was the right thing to do, or do you feel like I should have mentored them either way?
I think, I mean, one of the valuable things that we have that we can't get back is time. And I think it's okay to do that, but I think it's important to explain the why I can't continue to spend time, because I'm as committed to you as you are committed to me. So if I'm committing my time and my resources, which are here, to you, I need you to at least be able to meet me halfway. And if you don't show any interest in your growth and development, then it's difficult for me to push you. I can't want it more than you want it. You got to want it just as bad as I want it for you. And so I think that's appropriate. The important thing, I think, is just sharing the why behind why
Yes.
you can't continue the relationship.
No, absolutely. I think the next phase for me as a business owner in the mentorship world is the advisory group, right? It's a weird connotation. Someone brought it up to me a few years ago, and I've been slowly trying to figure out how does a business owner build an advisory group, whether most likely is going to be at a request of an unpaid advisory group because small business don't have the extra capital. But I've developed the job description. I've developed the game plan. Had a whole information on what the company is doing and how we're going to do it and how we're moving forward. But I think it's still that same advice of like, how do you approach someone at your level, right? At my
Yeah.
level, at Deshaun's level, and say, hey, can you be on my advisory group to help me grow my business? And you're going to get social connection out of it or something. I think that's something that business owners need to try to do and really understand the power of an advisory group, right? Because we're siloed, right? When you're the top person in the company, you're usually in a silo. Every decision lands on you, and it's
Yes.
hard to press down when you're trying to find people to bring into that group and in a more formal structure. What do you think about that? Is that something that you advise people to do as well?
Oh, I certainly do. As a matter of fact, when you're the top woman, the top man in the business, or your organization, it can get lonely at the top.
Yes.
I'm certain there's probably a song about that somewhere. Get lonely, being lonely at the top. And so there are a number of organizations out here that you can actually join. I'm actually a part of an organization where I have 15 advisors. And these are individuals who are owners of companies, CEOs of companies, and we meet on a monthly basis, and we actually problem solve any issues we have in our business. And I have the ability to be able to tap resources, not in just the fast food industry or quick service industry, but in all different industries. I mean, from IT, HR company. I mean, it's a plethora of folks that are on my advisory team. And so I think in lieu of that, I think what you do is you have to really be very specific and intentional of who you want and who you're searching for. And I think the biggest thing, I think, Janae, is just establishing a relationship. When you're first meeting someone, it's difficult at that time, but I think what you need to do is make yourself present. You need to be present in the community. You need to be involved and find out where some of these folks that you're looking to become, looking for mentors, where do they mostly spend their time? What boards are they on? What organizations or affiliations that they're involved with in the community? Even what churches do they attend? And then the easy thing is tapping some of your local resources, some of your connections. Hey, do you know this gentleman here? Do you know this young lady here? Because I would love to get a time where I can sit down and talk to them. And so I think that's an opportunity. It's almost like an interview process. You just want the face to face as you're talking with somebody. And then when someone sees how passionate you are and how much you've been following them and what you think they can bring to the table for you, it's flattering. But also too, if it's somebody who's been mentored and someone who understands servant leadership and leadership in general, most likely they will, in fact, take you on. And so I'd say tap your resources, your connections that you have to see if there's a connection to someone you want to be mentored by. And then also seek organizations that have peer groups that you can join to as well.
I think one of the things, as you were saying that, one thing is going through my mind, because I've said the same thing to many people, right? And the question is going, I don't have time for that. I'm too busy. I have time to join groups or go to events and mentor people or be mentored. I have to call them all the time. And I'm trying to explain to people, it's a reciprocal situation, right? I'll tell people, like, 10% of my clientele comes from one of my mentors, right? They're always like, hey, I need help with something, call Janae, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that kind of understanding of it's not just about having somebody preach to you, right? It's about having somebody pour into you and help you grow your business and understand where you're coming from and where you're trying to head to.
Mm-hmm. Janae, it is, I sit down with a lot of folks that want to become Chick-fil-A franchise owners. And been excited to say that many of them have had the opportunity and moved into an opportunity to own their own Chick-fil-A restaurant. And so when they ask me, they say, Keith, what can I do for you? I said, you can do one thing for me. Just as I spent time with you and spend time with you, mentoring you to help you get your own restaurant, I expect you to make time for someone else. And for me, a mentor of mine told me years ago, if you help enough people reach their goals, then eventually your goals are going to be met.
Yes.
And I think that's the posture of a servant leader. A servant leader is someone who actually looks beyond themselves and looks for ways that they can actually serve someone else. As a leader, as an owner of a company, if you looked at our organizational chart, I'm not really on top. I'm really at the bottom. And so I serve my executive team. My executive team serves the mid-level managers. The managers and leaders serve the team members. And then the team
Mhm.
members serve the guests. And that's the hierarchy of our organization. And it should be the hierarchy of every organization that touts that they're a servant leadership organization.
No, I like that mentality. I like it. It's a great way of looking at your business. The top down model, right? Of it's not about the leader. The leader's job is about envisioning the company and seeing where it grow. But the person who's actually in touch with your clients is the
Yeah.
person who's the most important person in your organization, right? And if you don't pour into them, and they're doing stuff that's not in the culture or in the way that it wants to be done, then that looks badly on you too. So it's definitely a reciprocal relationship in that light.
Yeah. Janae, it's so funny. I'm in the fast food industry. You're in a different industry. The thing that we have in common are our human resources.
Yes.
I don't care whether I'm selling a chicken sandwich or you're consulting and you're meant, the bottom line is we have people who we are responsible for. And unless you can get those folks excited and engaged in the business won't grow. And so we have a posture that when we have great people that work for us, the goal is certainly being able to have them come and stay with us forever. But if that's not what they want, if I'm intentional and I know what their goals are, and if it's not Chick-fil-A, it's still my responsibility to do everything in my power to help get them to where they are. So one
Absolutely.
might ask, well, now you got people leaving the organization. But if you have an organization that focuses on building leaders and mentoring team members and younger leaders, then what happens is you'll have a constant flow of people. I want my son or daughter to work there.
Yes.
I see how it's more than just making a sandwich. She's learning how to work under stressful situations. She's learning how to plan. She's understanding what a 401k is. She's understanding financial literacy. See, these are things that we do in our organization that go beyond selling the sandwich. Because when you have people that work in your organization, their whole being is not just Chick-fil-A.
Correct.
That's only a part of who they are. They've got financial aspirations. They've got some personal aspirations. They've got challenges and issues. And so if we can address all of those things, then you have a team member or a leader that's engaged. And when they're engaged, that means that they actually are speaking into the business and they're helping the business grow. Because I would be the first to tell you, our success has nothing to do with what's between these two ears right here. If it was just between these two ears, I might not have even one Chick-fil-A. But our success has always been based on how we're growing our team, one leader at a time, one team member at a time, and just showing them that they matter, that they value, and what they bring to the table is important. And so if you got that in your organization, a mentoring piece, it's going, and you need to have that when it comes to life cycles.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna, look at COVID. I mean, we went through COVID 2 years ago. I tell you, that was probably in my 23 years in this business, the hardest time ever, because I was first challenged at a time where I had to really take care of our leaders, our team members at a different level. We had to bring in things that actually were people were comfortable coming to work, from masks to equipment to circulate the air to having people come in testing our team, and so it was a huge stress. But what happened was, while we lost a number of people, there was a core group of folks that just stayed, and then we started recruiting where we can recruit 20 people at one time. We were getting 1, 2 at a time, and so sometimes when those challenges comes, that's when your leadership really stands out.
No, absolutely, absolutely. I think one of the things that you hear a lot lately on social media is this generational battle, right? Of
Mhm.
millennials versus the Generation Xers and even the baby boomers. Of how do you how do you mentor someone where you don't really understand their work ethic, right? I think there's a connotation that we all are different, right? Like our age group is right in the middle, understanding how we can deal with technology and deal with baby boomers. But the next generation after us is a little bit more, their technology is definitely deeper, and
Yeah,
we kind of, in our generation, a lot of our business leaders don't really feel they can mentor someone that's younger than them, or can mentor
yeah.
someone who is not in the same generation as them. How do we help them understand how to do that, right? How do you bridge that gap? How do you reach people where they are to help them grow?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. You said, how do we help them understand? I'd like to flip that a little. I think the first thing that we have to do is we have to understand who they are. Once we understand who they are, then it equips us to be able to help mentor them. I have a lot of young leaders, and so I don't mentor a lot of team leaders that I don't mentor directly, but the folks above them, I mentor them, and some of them are closer to their age than I am. And so, but what I do what I can do. I can't mentor every individual, but what I can do is mentor the most important people who are mentoring our team. And so part of that is understanding that age group. I know that age groups want to know that they want to know that what they're involved in is much larger than who they are. When you work at Chick-fil-A, it's more than just selling a sandwich and providing a shake. They want to be a part of us because they know that we give back to the homeless shelters in DC. They want to be associated with us because they know that we've got a mentoring program that we work with, not only in the organization but outside the organization too as well. And so there's a connection there. They want to know that they're valued. They want to know that there's an opportunity for them to grow up, to be promoted up the ladder. And so as you begin to provide those things, by first me understanding them instead of them understanding me. Once I understand them, then it gives me the tools it gives me a plan, so to speak. Instead of going right, now I know I need to go left with this individual because these are the things that are most important to them. I had a young lady say, we were in a meeting the other day, and we were meeting with other owners, and one of my young team leaders, and she said, we're trying to grow our business, increase sales for Mr. Keith. I said, no, no. I said, I want you to understand when we grow sales and our profits grow, first of all, I don't take all the profits. The reason why, and that's on purpose. The reason why you know that because you've been able to get promoted very quickly in the business, the events and things that we're involved in, the fun stuff where we go to bowl, we go take the team out for bowling. We have all types of parties. The gifts at Christmas time are just off the chart, and so those are what actually I could keep that money for myself, but I choose to give that back to you all. The scholarships, the bonus plan that we have, the healthcare, a lot of perks that we provide for them. It's not just for me; it's for them. And just helping them to be able to understand that is important too as well. But first, we've got to first seek to understand before you're understood. And someone shared that with me years ago, and so I try to do that completely at work. I even try to do it at home. I'm not always as successful at home, but, but I'm still working on that.
This is a really, really, really good conversation. We're getting to the end of this segment, but before we cut it off and we move next, everything that you all have been talking about has been really, really great. But there's one question I think our audience needs an answer to, and it's if mentorship is currently not a part of your organization's ethos, what are some steps they can take to start making that happen?
um, well, one of the things that we did some years ago, instead of me trying to figure out what it is that folks want, we actually did a survey for everybody in our organization. You know, what do you like about Chick-fil-A? What don't you like? How do you like your direct report? We asked a lot of specific questions to try to get an idea of what it is people were looking for, and so that led us to really amp up our process on how we develop our team. And so I would think first, there comes an understanding, Deshaun, that if your team is not growing and if you're not mentoring, you need to make certain that you have a process in place. And sometimes it's not me. So I mentor, our leaders mentor, but we also have outside resources that come in and mentor some of my leaders too as well. And so I think you have to be comfortable with the fact that if you can't mentor, you need to have somebody else come in and help you put a program together so that you can actually begin to mentor your team. And it's going to cost some money, but I tell you, it's an investment. I would much rather compromise any short term gains for long term gains. You know,
Absolutely.
a lot of people want to be profitable. I mean, we have to be profitable, but they want to be really making a ton of money in that month to month to month. But at some point, you got to be able to invest. It's not a cost; it's an investment in our estimation. So get do I do a survey, and if you're not comfortable with its survey, get someone else to come in and do a survey, or get someone else to help you put a mentorship program together.
So one of the things for us is that mentorship is part of our culture, right? It's built into our vision. It's built into our mission. It's about training staff, giving them the ability to learn and do proactive learning in our goal. So one of the things that we do is there's a part of your evaluation that talks about what are your goals, what are things you want to do, right? And we are very deliberate in asking a question of we're not talking about Primus, like what are your goals, what do you want to do, right?
Right.
Because
Yeah.
I need to know that, because one, I'm always I'm in that generation who used to jump companies every couple of years, right? I learn, I gave them all, and then I move on, and I'm okay with people doing that, but I want to make sure that when they do that, they're leaving with a brand of Primus with them, right? They're my representatives when they leave my company because I taught them how to do what they're doing. So I
Right.
want to make sure I understand what they want to do, and it's in their evaluation. So every 3 months we talk about it, we give them the training they need to get to that level they want to get to, and we help them go through that. I know, like people think it's an insult. But when someone says to me, "Hey, their goal is to be president of Primus," I'm like, "Bet that means I can go on vacation. Let me start training you. Let me start showing you what needs to be done, so that way I can move on and do something else while you keep my company going." Right. So it's the idea of mentorship and the idea of training and evaluating your staff. It takes a honestly, it takes a special kind of leader to do it, right? Because some leaders are, I don't want to teach them too much because they're gonna leave and be my competitor,
Right.
or they're gonna leave and take my ideas to some other company. I don't care, because the ideas that I have, I had this thought in my head a long time ago. I will teach you everything I know, because the only thing you can beat is me yesterday, because I already learned new things today that you don't know yet, right? So I'm willing to give everybody all that information, give them everything they got, because I want them to be as great as possible in my organization. So that evaluation process helps me understand what they want to be, where they want to be, and I put in the resources to them to get them there.
Yeah.
This show is brought to you by Julo.shop. Experience more than just shopping at Julo.shop. It's a celebration of amazing products from Black-owned brands. Our product partners are like you and me. They had a vision, and now they're a part of the Julo family. We promise to bring you quality, convenience, and the selection that you deserve. Discover, experience, and enjoy something new at Julo.shop today. Visit www.julo.shop.
Now it's time for our CEO quick deep dive, the part of our show where we engage today's guests in a Q&A session designed to dig a little deeper into the specifics of their expertise and leave you, the listener, with a tangible advice. Since Mr. Keith is a franchise owner, today's segment is all about franchises. So, Mr. Keith, can
Yes.
you briefly tell us the story of how Keith Singleton decided to own a franchise, decided to own a franchise?
Well, I'm going to tell you a real quick story. It started back, I'm telling my age now, it started back in 1979 when I was a freshman at college attending Cheyney University, which is the oldest HBCU in the country. And I needed a part-time job. And guess where that was? At Chick-fil-A. And this was in Pennsylvania. I had no idea what Chick-fil-A was about because they weren't in our area and they weren't in our communities. And so fell in love with the owner, fell in love with the concept, fell in love with their values. But it wasn't enough for me to lead with a degree in accounting and finance to go directly into the quick service restaurant industry. And so I worked in that area for about 20, 25 years or so. But what was interesting, I found myself being drawn back to Chick-fil-A. And one thing led to another. And then in 2000, I got my first Chick-fil-A restaurant. And I tell you, I spent a lot of time wondering, is this something that I want to do? I knew I wanted to have my own business and be in business, but I hadn't given franchising a thought until I got, kind of not bored in my job, but I was working 70, 80 hours a week at some of these jobs that I had. And so I said, if I can work half as hard as I do now in my own business, I would be successful. And so as I started digging more into Chick-fil-A, I found out that their values were similar to mine. And I found out as I started studying the franchise model, I love the model. I mean, the model for franchising is that, you have the ability, you're entering into a marriage. That's what it's really like, a marriage, you being the franchisee and the franchisor. And so you get the opportunity to lease their trademarks, to sell their products or services for a fee. And so the beautiful thing about franchising is that I didn't have to do a lot of advertising myself. Because, Chick-fil-A, even back then, wasn't a well-known brand in our community, but it is now. And so with a franchise, you have an opportunity to be able to be associated with an organization that generally has systems and processes set up. They've got the trademarks and things all locked down. everything is in place. You just have to go in and operate it. And so that's easier said than done. But that's essentially how I got into the business. It fulfilled two needs that I wanted. Number one was to be able to teach, because I knew I couldn't teach in the normal uh, the normal way in a school system, because it didn't offer the at least the financial resources that I wanted, or the lifestyle that I wanted. And so I chose Chick-fil-A and franchising, because I was still able to do the same thing through mentoring with the organization. So it's been a wonderful. I would encourage anyone to, if they're interested in being in business for themselves, to look at franchising as a model, because you're in business for yourself, but you're not by yourself.
I
And
like that.
so, and that's a huge opportunity. Yeah.
So, with what you just said, what are 5 pieces of advice you would give someone who's interested in going into franchising?
Oh, okay. Gosh, I would tell you, number one, you know, as you establish what your goals are, what your values are, find those companies, those franchise companies that have similar values. Because I think that's important. It's just like a marriage. You want to hook up, with somebody, marry somebody that's similar to you and has some of the same goals and values as you do. So I think that's the first thing. Number two, I think just doing your due diligence, spending time. I actually worked for free in the business, and as I got older, when I was younger in college, I worked part time and got paid. But as I got older, I would go and work in Chick-fil-A restaurants for free, just to get the experience and see if this is something I really want to do. And so that's important. So that's, most people won't do that. Go someplace and work for free.
Yeah.
But and not 40 hours a week, just a couple of days a week, just to get a real good understanding. Connect with folks uh, that you aspire to be associated with. If it's a Chick-fil-A, connect with franchise owners to get an idea of what it is what are some success stories they have, and what can they share with you to keep you moving forward, as opposed to going backwards too as well. And so those are some things that I would focus on. The other thing, I think, a skill set that you have to have, or somebody on your team has to have, you got to be able to connect with people. If you can't, you got to have somebody else, because people will be attracted to Chick-fil-A. It could be just for the sandwich and the free food that they get when they work with us. But at some point, that free food is not going to be as exciting if the environment and the culture doesn't match how good the food is. And so as you're getting into that, you got to understand that this is a people business. We sell sandwiches. We build leaders, one leader at a time, and we sell sandwiches on the side. You know, and that's kind of that's the mentality anyone needs to have when they're talking about it, whether in business or whether you're going working with a franchise organization.
Nice, nice. So, knowing what you know now, right, being with Chick-fil-A for so many years,
Hmm.
would you still own 2 franchises now?
Yes, I would. I most certainly would. I have, the last 23 years it has really been pure joy, and it's been a lot of hard work, but the joy that I get when I see folks like Deshaun that are going off and that are prosperous and doing their own things, seeing people grow and develop is just so exciting. I'm proud to be a part of the Chick-fil-A family. The organization gives tons of money, not only nationwide, but also internationally too as well, through mission work and through our servant leadership courses that we teach abroad and so forth. And so I just love what I do. Now here's the interesting thing, Janae. I could do this with another company. I could have done this with another company. I really could have. It could have been McDonald's or any place else. But the key ingredient were the people. And that's what draws me. That's what gets me excited and gets me up every day. It's the folks that I work with. I mean, I generally I enjoy seeing them.
Yeah.
I get so much energy. And my wife teases me all the time. When we come back from vacation, she says, "Look, Do not stop by the restaurants. Take me home first, and then you can go back. But it's just a connection that you have because you begin to be a part of their lives. Now I could have done that anywhere in any organization, but it just so happened that the Chick-fil-A, a lot of their values matched up with mine. I think being closed on Sundays, I think is important, whether you choose to worship or not. Just having a day with your family. I mean, a day of rest. I mean, you've been by Chick-fil-A before. You know how busy we are. I mean,
Yes.
having that Sunday off is it's wonderful, and our team loves it too as well. And so, but I would tell you, when it comes to franchising, one of the things I want to caution people with is that it is a marriage. There are standards that you have to keep. There's a menu. I mean, as much as I like crab cakes, and I know folks love sweet potato pie and hog mogs and chitlins, I can't serve that on the menu. I mean, there's a set. If you're somebody that really can't follow rules, franchising maybe is not the way you should go. It's not the direction you should go. And but I tell you, thinking back 23 years ago, if I had to do this all over again, I would still do Chick-fil-A. But one of the things that I learned the most, having a finance background, I was always the guy that I connected with people, but it was always about the bottom line. And so I thought that I could bring people on board and at this level and train them to be a really strong leader. Everyone has what I call a leadership cap from 1 to 10. If you're leading at a level of a 6, there's no way in the world you're going to get to a 10. I mean, I don't want to say no way. It's possible, but it's going to take a lot of effort, and probably more effort than what you need to for working with a 6 versus somebody that you have an 8 or 9 on your team. And so making certain you have the right people, you select the right people that match up with your core values and your vision.
Nice.
If you don't have that, it's going to be difficult to continue to grow, because what you want to do is you want to be able to attract like-minded people, and you want to be able to attract people that have different skill sets from you that complement what you have. And so you put all those things together. It's important. The other thing is, don't be afraid to pay people. Pay people a fair wage and
Yes.
pay them what they're worth. Pay them what they're worth, hold them accountable. And as they do, as they reach those metrics or whatever you have, the measurements you have for them, give them the increases, give them the bonuses, because that's going to keep them there. That's going to keep them engaged, and that's going to let them know that I support them. Because if you're working every day, the last thing you want to worry about is, gosh, I sure hope I had this job tomorrow. I
No,
sure hope
definitely.
I can pay my bills. You need to be able to take some things off the table. I will take care of you, but I need you to take care of my people and take care of our guests. And so putting emphasis on people and then building a culture. If you don't have a strong culture in your business, folks are only going to work hard for nothing and work hard in an environment that's toxic for a short period of time. People are going to get fed up.
Correct.
And I don't care how good the food is. I don't care how flexible your hours are. If the atmosphere is toxic and it's not conducive to them growing and being engaged and being able to have the ability to pour into the business, they're not going to stick around long. And you're going to spend a lot of time on training costs, on recruiting costs, and so forth. So those are some real key things that I learned, in this business. If I had to do all over again, I would start with those 3 or 4 things.
Nice. My last question for you, sir. Uh, what is the greatest advice that you received from a mentor in your career that made you change the way you look at business and that you want to share with our audience?
The greatest advice that I received from a couple of mentors was that I don't own a chicken business. I own a group of individuals whom I'm responsible for. People are the most important assets in any business. I don't care whether you're providing a service or you're providing a product. The most important thing are your people, and that's the most valuable thing I learned. If you take care of your people and build a culture where people, let's face it, if we didn't have to go to work, none of us would, right?
True.
If we can earn a living with staying home. But since we have to go to work, why can't we go someplace where it can be a contagious culture, contagious environment where people are having fun, people are respecting each other, people are growing and learning, people are having opportunities that they've never experienced before. And so that was the most important thing that I learned. It's not about the number of chicken sandwiches that I sell. It's not about how many cars I get through the drive-through. It's not about the profits I bring to the table. All those things are important. But if you focus on the people and hold them accountable to these metrics, you're going to be able to get those. Those things will come. It's just like I mentioned earlier. You help enough people reach their goals, then eventually you'll reach your goals.
Absolutely. Mr. Keith, thank you so much. Really appreciate this moment with you to talk through some of these really interesting topics.
It's my pleasure. I enjoyed it. Thank you all for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to Right on the Money. We know there are millions of podcasts you could be listening to right now, and we are humbled that you chose this one. If you or someone you know would make a great guest on our podcast, a link to our guest request form will be provided in the show notes. Last and certainly not least, don't forget to give the gift of high-level business advice to the CEO in your life by sharing our podcast on both Apple and Spotify podcasts. See you next time.